I think that we can all agree here that everything happening with Disney right now is probably the biggest mess in the film industry in the past number of decades, given that we have people out there like Bob Iger really making all the wrong choices, and let's not forget about many members on the board really supporting Kathleen Kennedy over at Lucasfilm, running all things Star Wars, at least on the business end of the spectrum, and to some degree, working on the creative aspects of The Acolyte, as well as Skeleton Crew, etc., etc. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into exactly what's going on with Snow White 2024. Now, earlier on today, we discussed about what's going on with Gal and the Snow White sequel and how that's falling apart and how she was removed as the evil queen, and that's really bringing Disney into a phase of being very much, panicky over the entire Snow White situation. Now, we know that the current film right now is still slated for that March 22nd of 2024 release date window, and that's still up in the air because they are about to embrace reshoots. Now, we're going to be talking about how the WGA strike and everything happening with SAG gets into the equation with this, and exactly how this makes an even bigger obstacle for Disney to get past. So let's dive into all of this and exactly what's happening with Snow White 2024. Now, we already know that this film is going to be dead on arrival. I think that we can all pretty much agree with that, right? Everything ranging from Rachel Zegler's past comments about this movie, hating on the original 1937 film, and even the son of the director of the original Snow White film came forward and said that he is just so saddened over the fact about how radical Disney has become with their thoughts and their processes on these movies and their live-action remakes. Now, let's get to the next thing. Now, with Snow White 24 going through many issues due to Disney's poor choices with this movie, one important development has much to do with the plot of the film that focuses on Snow White, portrayed by Rachel Zegler. Now, one major plan happening right now between the Disney board and Bob Iger has to do with reshoots for the Snow White 24 movie. As of now, Disney has a concrete plan mapped out that they are getting ready and are willing to delay this movie from March of 2024 until June and or July of next year to embrace reshoots, since the strikes are getting in the way. The reshoots that are planned out by Disney right now are said to be frantic and to focus on redoing the scenes for the Seven Dwarfs specifically. Now, this is where matters get worse. What makes it all the more complex is that they are planning on using the same exact actors and are still unwilling to do a full-on recast into, of course, hiring actual dwarfs. The plan made by Iger and those high up at Disney that reshoots for the third act of Snow White are to move forward, and that a delay for the film is very much possible and will happen if and only if the strikes don't resolve by this November. So guys, let me pause here quick to make things a little bit more simple. The reshoots are planned, they are etched in to happen, but the movie will only get delayed until summer of next year if the writer's strike do not come to an end by this November. Now, if you guys want my 2 cents, I think that the writer's strikes, everything happening with SAG as well, that's gonna very well get past November. I feel it's gonna spill into 2024, if you want my honest opinion. We've actually had quite a number of people, thankfully, in the film industry tuning in here in the comments before in the past throughout this week, talking about how they themselves believe it's gonna last until at least January of next year. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. Now, what's interesting about Snow White 2024, though, is the fact that Disney is doing something that is counterproductive. Number one, they are embracing reshoots surrounding the Seven Dwarfs, if you even want to call them that. They are being referred to as the Seven Magical Creatures, reportedly, in this movie. And they are reshooting aspects of those characters in those scenes to kind of help with the dialogue. Now, here's a kicker for you guys. A lot of people seem to have a little bit of a confusion with Snow White 24. A lot of people think Mark Webb wrote this movie. And in reality, no, he's only the director. You know who wrote this movie? I'm surprised I never mentioned this before. I don't know if you guys ever knew this, but the writer of Snow White is, of course, the writer of Barbie. Yes, Greta wrote this movie. You guys may or may not know her, but Greta actually wrote this movie for Snow White, and if you guys, of course, know everything about what happened with Barbie, you all know exactly why Snow White is going to get the same marketing treatment now with the upcoming, of course, film and how it's going to be modeled after the Barbie marketing. We all know that in that film, they mentioned the patriarchy like multiple times to the point where it's so exhausting. I'm sure that you guys know about the whole, criticism about that film. It's all because of Greta. But getting past the whole Greta situation, we'll talk about that in a little bit. On top of this, Disney is now very open to delaying this film until the summer of 24 just to get some frantic reshoots done for this film. However, the strikes are only delaying these plans drastically and further and essentially are wrecking Disney's plans of getting this film out by March of next year. The plans for reshoots are set to also involve actress Rachel Zegler as Snow White and her interactions with the dwarfs to be completely altered with brand new dialogue, as they have requested director Mark Webb and writers Greta Gerwig and Erin Wilson to drastically change some scenes for the final act of the film. Now, Greta also wrote the Barbie movie, or the screenplay, whatever have you, which answers too many, of course, why this film is such a disaster full of agenda-driven aspects as well. Other sequences planned to be reshot will also involve sequences focusing on the magic mirror in isolation without the evil queen being present, as Gal refuses to take part in said reshoots, which is causing more trouble. Now here's the problem with this movie. You have people like Greta who wrote the film. I'm surprised I never mentioned this before. I'm sorry, by the way, guys, but you may have known about that, but that's why this movie's going to get the Barbie treatment when it comes to the marketing. Alright, a lot of it does have to do with Disney, but it also has a lot to do with Greta Gerwig and how she was a part of writing the screenplay for Snow White 24. Now, the fact that Disney is doing something so counterproductive as embracing these reshoots for the final act, and so far, it's only for the final act, so give or take like the last 50 minutes of this movie, right around there. They want to basically revamp all of the Seven Dwarf scenes, and as well as Rachel Zegler's Snow White scenes. Gal, though, does not want to participate in said reshoots. And that's creating quite a series of drama, moments for Disney to deal with. And that just goes to show you that they don't know what to do. This is creating more tension between Gal and the bigwigs over at Disney trying to get this film out there. If I were Disney, I would just be so tired at this point where I would just be like, alright, you know what? Let's call it a day, cancel this movie, let's Batgirl this thing, and just move on, and just focus on something else. So, anyway guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.
From night to morning.